Good morning, everyone. My name's Stefan, the Digital Commando, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Commando Show. Now, we've mixed it up a little bit and we've got something new for you today. So today, we've changed up our Thursday thanks to Teams Thursday. So what do we talk about on Teams Thursday? First, we're going to talk about how to create a fantastic culture within your business. We're then going to talk about how to lead and inspire your team. And then finally, we're going to end on how to communicate effectively internally with your team as well, especially while we're all working remotely, or lots of us are still working remotely. So two more fantastic guests for you today. So I've got Sarah and Duncan. Let's bring them into the room. Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning. Hey. Thanks for having me on.
Let me get rid of this banner because we can't see Sarah. There she is.
You're right. How you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you both for joining me today. Really, really happy to have you here. You have been on the show before. We've got two fantastic guests, second time round. These guys aren't the virgins, so it's great. We'll leave that there. Don't mention that. So we've got some fantastic content today. But before we go into that, let's get them to both introduce themselves for anybody who hasn't seen the show before. So Duncan, we're going to come to you first.
Hi, I'm Duncan. I am a hypnotherapist and psychotherapist and mindset coach, and that's all just labels. What really matters is what I do for people. And what I do is I help people to empower themselves. See, the mind is an amazing thing, and people like me and everyone watching can be really good at using that to trip themselves up and get in their own way. What I do is I help people use that same power rather than fighting against it to achieve great things.
Thank you very much, Duncan. And Sarah Higgs, over to you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Sarah. I work with Osborne Children's Books, which is working in that lovely industry known as network marketing, which some people love and some people hate. But I lead and look after a team of just under 1,000 women at the moment. There's a few men in there as well. So when it comes to team building, leadership and communication, that's something that I spend pretty much all day, every day doing. So yeah, looking forward to being here today. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. For everybody who hasn't seen the show before, my name's Stefan. I'm the founder of Sigma Digital and the creator of the Digital Commando Academy that teaches people to go from zero to hero in Facebook advertising. If you want more information from that, Google it. So we're going to get stuck in. Guys, remember, we've got some fantastic experts. Throw in your questions. We'll get them answered for you. And also, remember to pay it forward. Obviously, we're not going to remind you to pay it forward because we've changed the topic for today and it's Thursday. But if you know anybody you feel could benefit from the show today, then please do tag them in the comments or share the whole show with them so they can watch it on the replay. And if you watch it on the replay, please put in replay just so we know. That'd be really great. So, guys, let's get stuck into it. First thing we're going to talk about today is how to create a fantastic company culture. Now, culture is so important. And I've learned this over time when I've recruited the wrong people for the business, and it kind of adds a real strange demographic and kind of a really weird atmosphere when you're trying to kind of move people forward and keep them motivated and inspired and all the rest of it. So, Duncan, give us some ideas on what, from your point of view, how to create a great company culture.
Cool. So to start with, I think it's as true for a sole trader as it is for a huge conglomerate that it's really important to make sure you're really clear on what that business stands for, what your values are, what your message is, and what you're there for. So Stephen Covey, for example, definitely, if you haven't read his book, read his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It touches on it in there. And I think, yeah, there it is right there. Brilliant.
I made earlier.
Start by understanding what are your values and what's important to you. Then look at what are the values of your business and what's important to the business. The chances are there's going to be some tie-in there. If you're running a business, then it's going to tie in with what's important to you, right? But the values of the business should be absolutely clear, and I would say written down, and part of the foundation and the fabric of what that business stands for and what it is. If you're in a place where you've already got a sizable business and you've got people that are part of a team and you don't have that, then get them involved in creating those values, because then they'll feel a part of it as well, and that's really cool. And then from those values, you can create a mission statement, something that really clearly defines what the whole purpose is, what the big picture is, what it means to be part of that company. if it's really clear what the company is about, it makes it much easier to recruit the right people. So in the example that you gave, like, yeah, recruiting the wrong people can be really damaging for those people, for the brand, and for the motivation levels of everyone else involved and around that. So when you're clear on, in the same way that if you're clear with your marketing message, who your target demographic is, who you're looking to connect with, if you're clear as a business what you're all about, you're going to attract people that get that, both internally for the business and externally in terms of customers. So yeah, it starts from understanding the values and what you're really about, creating that mission statement, and then making sure that that's not just an exercise that's been done for the sake of ticking a box and slapping a sticker up on the wall. It's about having something that then runs through everything you do and look at every single element of that business. Does it tie in with that? If it doesn't, are the values wrong? Or more likely, is that part of the business not working as it needs to?
Absolutely, Duncan. I totally agree with you. And I think this is one of the things that we do as an exercise where everybody should be doing it in the very beginning. Sarah, I'm going to mute you again. Sorry. We've got these birds chirping away. I'm as guilty for it, as you know, as I am. So yeah, it's one of the things. It's one of the first things we do when we start a business is we create a business plan, and 99 times out of 100, inside the business plan will include your company mission, and you talk about your values and stuff in that as well. Now, one thing that business owners, especially startups, are very guilty of is they create a business plan. And I guarantee, and some people will be watching this and they'll be guilty for it. If you do it and want to admit it, then please do put it in the comments. Who's created their business plan maybe a year, 2 years ago, maybe longer, and never actually looked back at it?
I did.
I did for it when I first started. So you kind of create this mission.
Probably the wrong mission statement, but yeah.
Yeah, but then when you go back to it a year later, your mission statement's probably changed. But to communicate that effectively within the team and the people that you recruit and to the audience is really, really crucial, I think. So guys, make sure you go back to your business plans and check them out. Sarah, we're going to come over to you now. So what do you think about creating a great company culture?
Hey, and sorry about the birds. I thought it would be slightly less noisy than the children. I'm not quite sure. So yeah, Duncan actually started in the same place that I was going to start with this. And your culture comes down to your internal values, the things that you believe in, the things that make you tick. And that's going to work its way into your business as well. So it is that knowing how you like to work, knowing what your values are and what it is you want to go out there and do, and what that looks like in terms of the business as well. And again, that's not just reading a mission statement to everyone who comes into your workplace or into your team of this is what my culture is and this is what you're going to adhere to. It's about that drip feeding it out in everything that you do and showcasing that culture within yourself, within how your business works. So that goes externally to your customers, your clients, to your teams and everyone as well. And don't underestimate the value of your social culture as well as, and this is something we talk about with Facebook groups now. I mean, online, socially, right now in lockdown, our cultures are going out there in terms of groups, the way we're communicating online. And it's how to create that fun aspect and what that looks like in terms of your own culture socially, as well as like in a focused work structure as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is really key, and I think we're going to talk about communication a little bit later on. But now we'll probably talk about groups because I know you do a lot of that, Sarah. Now, one of the things is when you are communicating with your teams and things like that, especially now, is to keep those things that you may have done before. I think now, if you're one of those, like I'm talking from an agency point of view, we're quite a cool agency, but we like to catch up with the team every maybe a lunchtime, or we might do a special thing on a Thursday where we'll just kind of watch a movie or watch a TV show together or something like that, just to mix it up. Now, just because everyone's in lockdown, you should still maintain those kind of activities that you were doing before if you were in the office, because it does bring people together. There's loads of businesses doing loads of little things like pub quizzes together. So I would say just make sure that you haven't lost that. If you were doing it really well before, even though we're remote working, to continue to try and do that as well. All right, cool. We're going to go on to the next point then today, which is how to inspire and lead a team. Now, I know Duncan's had a big team before, and Sarah's got a big team, an enormous team now. So, Duncan, I'll go to you first about how to lead and inspire a team. Give us some of your advice.
For me personally, it's about integrity more than anything else. It's about being true to who you are and having that integrity. You can be a good manager and be dishonest and lack integrity, but you can't be a good leader, in my opinion. What I see as a good leader without being true and honest with yourself and with your team. Now, within larger companies, there's sometimes limits on how open you can be about some elements of certain things, but that doesn't mean going against being honest and being true to yourself as much as anything else. I think particularly when you do start talking about big numbers of people and having different levels of involvement, I think it comes down to making sure that the communication is clear and consistent, and it will naturally be clear and consistent if you're being honest and sticking with what's right for you. And again, it comes back to those values, doesn't it? That should be live throughout every part of it. It should flow through the veins of the business.
Actually, I think we've all been through it where we've had those bosses that are complete idiots. They're not leaders. Managers maybe, but not necessarily leaders, and they don't inspire you. They don't make you want to go to work. If anything, they make you want to not go to work a lot of the time. Sometimes it gets the job done, but you're not happy at the end of the day, which is why we leave. This is one of the big things about, we talk about culture and we talk about good inspiration and leadership and management is that if it's done really well, people don't want to leave. They'll work a lot harder for you. If you've got that level of honesty and trust within that with your managers or your peers or whoever you're working for at the time, then I think it holds so dear. Now, I know from a company that I worked with when I first got out of the military, fantastic job. I worked in telemarketing and had a team of about 43 telemarketers. And we instilled such a good culture coming straight from the military side, where we did morning meetings every day. So everybody was clear. We had a bit of a laugh. We did a bit of a quiz, and we would just get everybody really, really pumped up to go. Like I learned from Dubai, we did like a clapping thing. So we'd do the morning meeting, everybody claps at the end, gets everybody a bit excited, and then bang, they're straight into work. Now, I really love that, and I try and instill that in every company that I've worked in ever since. So I really think it's important to have that. But by being transparent and honest with my team about pretty much everything you can be, I remember when I left that it was the only time I've ever left the company, and people were literally quite upset. Genuinely, some of the people in the team were like crying and things like that, like, oh, so it's horrible to see you go. And it was actually, although it's not very nice, it was nice for me at the same time, because I was like, oh, do you know what? I must have done a pretty good job. But it all came down to just emphasizing that culture and having somebody who was honest with them, treated them how they would like to be treated, which is key as well.
Oh yeah. See, you mentioned people leave if they're not happy, and you're so right. Like, because I do corporate, I go in and do sort of workplace wellbeing assessments. So I'll look at a corporate situation and see what they can do to improve looking after their staff's mental wellbeing in advance, proactively, rather than waiting until something goes wrong and then making sure that they've got mental health first aiders to deal with the problem. Actually, let's make sure that we're doing a risk assessment and getting things right first. And I often find that the decision maker, the person that needs to sign off on actually spending the pennies to start that, telling them that it's important to look after your staff and you have a duty of care, and people feel happier when they're looked after at work, doesn't work. That doesn't convince them. But there's a flip side to it which absolutely convinces them, which is just as important when it comes to the facts and figures of a business, which is the biggest cost to any business of that scale and size is their staffing and is their people. It's a huge investment. And the three biggest things that impact on how much that's going to cost a company are, one, productivity. If the staff aren't productive, you're just flushing that money away. And they'll be more productive if they feel happy and if they're looked after. Two, retention. It costs so much money to find new staff and to retrain them and get the right people in. And again, people will stay if they're happy and if they're looked after. And then the third is absenteeism. People will take time off sick if they feel like their boss doesn't care about them. Why should I care about work? I'll just not bother going in today. Whereas if you're happy and you enjoy being at work and it's a good place to be where you're looked after, a bit of a sniffle, well, do you know what? I'll go in and I'll be all right.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of we can throw in so many cliche quotes on this as well, can't we, when it comes to leadership and things. But one of the ones that was I was going to say, but then Sarah put a hand up, I lost it. I was going to say lead from the front, and there's obviously different ones, which some people say lead from the back. I'm very much lead from the front kind of guy. But that's military. That's a military side. But yeah, there's so many of these. I kind of feel completely. This is why it's fun doing a live show, because you forget your train of thought. But I'm going to leave it there, and it will come back to me in a minute. We've got a couple of questions, but we'll come on to them later. We're going to go over to Sarah. I think she wanted to say something anyway before we go on to it.
So I just wanted to pick up on something Duncan just said then, which was we were both talking about getting people to stick, getting people to want to come into your workplace, not wanting to pull off a sickie, wanting to come in even though they're on death's door because they want to be there. And for me, that links into what we just talked about as culture. It's looking at the whole thing as the bigger people and people feeling part of the team. They're not just there to get their paycheck. They are there because they have got your mission with you. They have felt your energy, your excitement. You have led and inspired them to see where this is going and how this business is going to have its place in the world, what it's going to do, what its purpose is. And if you get people with that culture, with that thinking around you, then they're never going to take a day off just because they feel like it or whatever, because they feel really, really valued. And I think when it comes to leadership, if you can make your people feel valued, no matter where they are in the hierarchy or what they're doing, they know that their position has a purpose within that, and they are moving that business forward into greater things, then they want to be there, then they're going to be productive, then they're going to want to put their all into it. And that comes from listening to your people. It comes from putting them first and having that hive mentality, that being a collective, that no one is more important than anyone else. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the top of that hierarchy and you're leading, you are just the same as importance to everyone in that team.
And that is so important. One of the expressions that I heard so often back in my corporate world, that I would always challenge. Anytime I heard it, that was something that I would stop and I would challenge, which is, I'm just a X. You're just a. So, for example, retail, because I've got a lot of experience in that world. Yay. I'm just a CA. I'm just a customer assistant or a general assistant, or I'm just a till tart, which.
Till tart. Wow.
Yeah, something that we would affectionately say at one of my stores. But yeah, like, no one's just an anything.
No.
Sarah's a great example of this. When I was involved in networking a lot, I was a regional leader, so I had area leaders under me, and then they had their teams running their groups. Now, at no point ever would I have even dreamed to suggest to my area leaders that they were under me or below me in any kind of structure. My job role was to be more strategic, to look at the bigger picture, to make sure that everything was in place, and to pick the right area leaders because they did an amazing job of making a difference to the rest of the teams. Their job wasn't to just blindly follow my orders. Their job was to run their teams and do their thing. Different levels within a structure are just different roles. It doesn't mean that one person's any better than anyone else. It just means that in some cases they're more suited to those elements, like being a leader, for example, where other people would be more suited to carrying out the day-to-day tasks. I'd be rubbish if you expected me to sit on a till all day. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I had a lot of respect back when I worked in that industry, obviously I still do, for people who could spend their whole shift doing that and still at the end of the day be smiling and loving the interaction with the customers, because that's what that job was about, and they did amazing.
A person is a person and they should be treated with the same respect as everyone else. As a leader, as soon as you forget that, as soon as you think you're better than anyone else or more important in your role than anyone else in that team, you have lost your position of leadership. You are no longer going to be as strong as you could be. Yeah, exactly. Or really.
Business owners. So it's good to remind business owners, and I stick to it as one of my laurels, is that everyone doesn't work for me. I work for them.
Yeah.
I work for my team at the end of the day. And if you don't have that mentality that that's the way it works, if you're a business owner, then it's never going to go very well. Now, I've had bosses in the military that are great, and I've had bosses in the military that were rubbish. Some of them are just like, I'm your boss, I'm a higher rank than you, you're going to do what I'm told. It's like an episode of Matilda, isn't it, or whatever it was. I'm big, you're small. I'm smart, you're thick.
This is tragedy, yeah.
And that's, some people are like that, and they were the ones that we never wanted to work for. Where the ones that were kind of like, do you know what? We're going to go and do this run. But rather than I send you out with the PT and that's off you go for your 4-mile run in the morning, I'm coming with you. I'm going to be at the front. And if you don't keep up with me, then you're in trouble because I'm 20 years older than you. That kind of stuff. We really like that. And from the military, I think that's definitely something that we've always done. When you used to have the leader of an army on a horse, he would be the one leading the charge into battle, not sat at the back. The king sat at the back.
Different people do need a very different approach. So, I mean, Maria's mentioned this in the comment. Do you think some people will just fight anything that goes against what they want to do? And it ties in with what you're saying. Like taking I was going to say military approach, but that can mean various different things to different people, can't it? But you've got to tailor your approach to suit the kind of people that you're working with. And that's something that I've had to relearn so many times in my experience. I mean, a great example of this was culturally. I'd spent a lot of time working with British people who had been born and brought up British that were very much as part of that culture. I went into a store at one point where the vast majority of the store were Asian, and they had a very different culture and way of doing things. Now, I remember my first day in that store, I asked someone really politely to do something because that's how I asked people to do things. And then I came back and it wasn't done, and he was doing something else entirely. He was still working hard, but he was doing something completely different. I asked you if you could do that. Why hasn't it been done? Oh, you only asked. Sorry, what? You only asked. You didn't tell me to do it. Right. Let me be really clear. I'm going to continue to be polite and ask you and say please. But when I say that, it means you do it because that's what I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
From that conversation, everything else was brilliant going forward, and we built a great relationship. But if I just, he needed to be directed. He needed to be told what to do because that's how he wanted to work. And that was so uncomfortable for me at that point because that's not how I've ever led a team before. So you do need to find the right approach and style to suit the person or people that you're working with, or you need to make sure you're the people you want to be working with that suit your leadership style.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a couple of the questions because we've got a couple of minutes before we go on to the next topic. So I just want to bring some of the guests in. Now, we have got one from Facebook user. Sorry that we don't know who you are. If anybody does get stuck on this and their name doesn't come up when they do it, it's because if you look in the comments, you're probably in the group. It will just say that you need to register with StreamYard so that we can see your face and name. So do that or just put your name on the comments. So the question that's come in is, what's the best advice you can give someone as a leader? Sarah, we'll come over to you first now.
Thanks. It's a tricky one because immediately I want more detail with that. I'm sort of searching for what's the reason you're asking. Is there something you feel like you're lacking? I think the biggest bit of advice I can give anyone in a leader role is knowing the bigger purpose. What is your purpose as a collective, as a team, as the people you're leading? What is the culture? What is the ethos? What is the thing you're trying to pull together? And then having that as your focus and really understanding that, because that will really help when your leadership. Can I quickly pop back to what Maria had asked as well?
Yeah, go for it.
Because that came up on the screen. So I think for what Maria was asking, that what do you do if someone's always fighting against it? When I said one of the things that you needed about leadership was to look at the bigger picture, I think this is where that comes into it. There's going to be points, especially when you get into much larger teams, like my team's at around 1,000 at the moment, that not everyone that comes in is going to have the same beliefs, going to have the same culture, is going to be on your bus, so to speak, is going to be driven by the same things as you. And sometimes, just, as Duncan says, you have to learn to work with them in a different way. But other times, you're just going to have to learn to accept it and go, do you know what, that person's always going to be that person. They're not truly with us and going forward. And sometimes being a bit harsh and knowing you're going to have to be a bit harsh just because the bigger picture is so much more important is something you're going to have to do. And being a leader isn't always easy. And sometimes it is having difficult conversations along the way because the bigger picture is so much more important.
Absolutely. Me and Sarah, we've been on a webinar this morning already, haven't we? Learning about the different ways in which people learn. And that comes down to leadership as well. The different ways that you tell people to do something, they will react very differently. Using Duncan's example earlier on is a perfect example of that. Some people like to be told directly. Some people need to be asked nicely. One of the things that some people like is they need to know what the why is. Now, I was never one of these people. I take direction, and if someone goes, right, this is what you need to do, go and get it done. A lot of the time, I was like, do you know what? I trust in the higher powers of my manager that if he's telling me to do something, it's probably for a good reason. I don't need to ask him why.
So I'm the opposite. I need the purpose.
Some people need to know the reason why before they will actually, because which I understand, because some people don't want to buy into it. They need a bit more of the emotional tie to really give them the drive to get that job done well. So yeah, it's all to do with different people and explaining that in a different way. We've had another question come in from Sarah Gibson. I'm going to throw this on screen. If there's someone on your team who isn't cooperating, how can you encourage them without causing unnecessary upset? Duncan, let's go over to you.
First, start by trying to understand, because it's so easy in that situation to think that they need to understand you and they need to get why it's important for you and for the business. Forget that, turn it on its head and start by thinking, okay, what is it that's stopping them from wanting to cooperate? So I took on a role where I was working with basically I was managing a warehouse. Now, warehouse staff don't get motivated by the same kind of thing as customer facing staff as a general rule, right? So if I'd gone into that with a soft and soft and fluffy leadership style, that would not have worked in that environment at all. The first thing I did was I spent that first week in that environment with my sleeves rolled up, working that job, shoulder to shoulder with them, understanding what their challenges were. By doing that, I was able to understand them better. And, you know, it's a typical kind of environment where you find that old bloke that's been doing it for years and that's all he's known and he's stuck in his way and he's still doing things the way the company did it like 20 years ago. Yeah. And if I had just gone in there as this young lad who knows nothing about that environment and just went, right, we're doing it like this because it says so in the book, of course he wouldn't want to follow me. And why would he? But because I spent that time with my sleeves rolled up, literally getting covered in pigeon poo at one point, but let's not go there. They were able to see that A, I wasn't just some bloke who was going to sit there and tell everyone else what to do. B, I was able to really understand what their challenges were and what was required, and then adapt and adjust my approach to suit that. In the end, the thing that motivated them most was every Monday, if they'd done a good job the week before, if they'd hit certain targets, then I'd tell them a really embarrassing story about me. And that kept them going. that kind of really worked.
But this really does work. And I think this is so key to people going into a new management role or new leadership or management role. Sometimes they're tied in together. Now, this is something that I definitely did it when I went to telemarketing. I wasn't actually a telemarketer, but I had a team of 42 people. I'd never done the job. Or I had done a little bit of it when I was younger, but not really to the extent of managing an entire department. And there was one story I've got where there was a one girl who worked with me, lovely girl, and she used to go, do you know what? I just can't make sales today. Can't make sales. And I used to go, okay, well, let's sit down and do some training. So I would sit down 1-to-1, 2 headphones in the phone, and would go through it. And I would go, right, I'll make a call, you make a call. I'll make a call, you make a call. Because one of the things that I stick to is I'd never expect anybody else to do anything I couldn't do myself. This is why I think it's key to learning the job. One of the great things about the military is that you go through that chain. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. So by the time you're at the top, you've done everybody else's job. So it's not like they can't blag you because you've been there. And this is what was so key. So I sat down with this girl, and again, it goes back to understanding the individual. And we sat there. I would do a call, make a sale. She would do a call, make a sale. And we went through it. And I said, well, how come when I'm sat with you, you can create sales, but when I'm away, you can't create sales? And it turned out it wasn't anything to do with her actual sales ability. She was a great salesperson. It came back down to, because she was an apprentice, she didn't actually want to make sales, because if she made sales, she got higher commission. If she got higher commission, it was going to affect her income support that she was getting for, she had a couple of children, and so she used to get benefits from there. And if she got too much money, it would have an effect on that. So it all turned out that was the main reason why. And I didn't understand that. as a manager or leader, I was just like, let's sell. And when I understood that, obviously the demographic completely changed. So sometimes it is just having those hard conversations with people to really understand them and get the most out of them. We'll go back to that same question, which was, go and find it. I find it.
What's the question?
The Sarah one's still on the screen.
That's why. It says something. How would you do it about causing unnecessary upset? Sarah, how do you feel about this one?
So for me, it's similar to what you were just saying, actually, Stefan. For me, my first point would be one-to-one, probably taking them out for a drink, sitting down and going, look, I feel things are not smooth at the moment. I feel like we're not on the same wavelength. You know, how can I support you? What's going on? Trying to find out really where they're at with things. And again, it's linking people back to the bigger picture, the culture. You know, this is where the whole thing's going. You know, where are you finding that hard to fit in with? And 9 times out of 10, it's normally something else that's going on and some other blocker or something like that you're trying to unlock within that. But I think it's that, you know, sometimes conversations are difficult, but if you can do it one-to-one and really show that you're trying to understand it from their point of view and make it really about them, not about the company, not about you, all about them, and really listen. That's key as well. It's not just an exercise to take them out, sit with them one-to-one, and then just tell them, pull your socks up, you need to be on board. You listen to what they're saying, you know, hear it, digest it, and then really work with that to try and bring them back on board and to cooperate with you.
Absolutely. I'm not going to throw it on screen, but we did have obviously a message coming from someone. I won't throw it onto screen because they might not want me to. But it's someone saying about how they've got a team, they find them difficult to manage. They're trying to bring in culture and structure into the company, but the people, like Duncan said, you've got people that have been in the company for a very, very long time, very, very set in their ways. Now, obviously, talking about trying to change things without unnecessary upset. Yeah. Unfortunately, this isn't always an option. I'm sure both of you would agree that sometimes
so in terms of
culture, but if people won't change, then from my point of view, you manage them out of the company and you replace them. That is it's the harsh truth of things, but it does come down to, if you want to have that culture, if you want it to run the right way, then sometimes those people have to go for the benefit of the business, because it is a business that we run.
In terms of that person, though, in that situation, I would say first is speak to each of those people one-to-one.
Yeah.
Show your vulnerability, explain to them exactly why you've had to put this in place and have that consistency across all branches, across the whole thing, why that's so important right now, and how much you've really appreciated everything they've done over that time, and how much it would mean to you if they could really support you with this, because it's a really difficult time as well, and you know that you need them to be on board with it, and really just have that honest conversation of how much it would mean for them if they could come on board with that. But yeah, at the end of the day, if people really can't, you've got to try and find a way to maybe get them out.
If you wanted to take that one step further, absolutely everything that Sarah just said and what Stefan was saying before, spot on. If you wanted to take that one step further, get their buy-in. So speak to them about, right, this is what we need to be congruent as a company. Everything needs to be done the same. This is why that's important. I think that this is a good way of doing things, but what do you think would be better? How would you adapt this? How would you adjust this? Or what do you think that your experience, because you've got so much of it, could bring to the new way that we do things together? People are resistant to change, but they're a lot less resistant to change if they feel they're being listened to and they have a chance to contribute to the direction of that change. Yeah. It's like if you tell a kid, you're having this for dinner, they might not be happy with that. If you say we've got this or this to choose from, and they're both healthy options that you have in the house that you want to feed that child, then they feel like they've got more of a choice. They make a decision. They feel like they were empowered and had a part in that, which they did, rather than just saying, hey, what do you want for dinner? And they go, ice cream. And then you've got to say no. So, present options to them, get them on board in deciding to play a part in it.
Yeah, and I think that's command tasks. So one of the big ways that we teach leadership management in the military is command tasks. So we would take everybody out, and you may have seen this before, where you'll have maybe a big square, a barrel in the middle, a rope, and a team of 4 people, and you've got to get the barrel out in the middle without touching the floor in the middle. Those kind of tasks. Now, one of the key things that we used to learn in officer training actually was that we would go in and go, right, okay, rather than just go, I've got a great idea, this is what we should do. It would be, right, guys, I've got a bit of an idea. This is what my idea is, but let's hear from all of you. What are your ideas? Because for all intents and purposes, you might have a great idea. Doesn't mean somebody else hasn't got a better one, or something they can add into that that's of value. So you kind of go around, and as a leader, you kind of go around the team, get the advice from everybody, and then you go, right, guys, fantastic input. We've got a new plan. And then you represent the same plan, almost as if it's your own, but with the information that you've got from everybody else. And they're a lot more bought in from that.
It shows much stronger leadership to change your view to suit the feedback that you get. That shows way more strength than being dogmatic with your opinion. And people will respect you so much more for it.
Absolutely.
Yep. I'm going to counteract that very slightly, though, because I completely agree. And I think in small teams and in small groups and making decisions is so important to listen to what your people want and working with them. But when you've got such large teams or so many stores or whatever, and decisions need to be made quickly, sometimes your leadership role is actually you just need to make that decision and then deal with it. And that's hard and not easy. And obviously, it's so much better if you've got the time to bring everyone in and have these great big discussions. But that's not always the case as well. And if you've had to be in that position where you've just had to make the decisions yourself, because actually you've got the information that's come in and you've had to process that and deal with it, then that's okay as well. But it is just that trying to make everyone understand. And I've just seen what Maria's just said about this person as well. In that case, you know what? That person goes. That is completely not acceptable or on at all. You make that clear, they change it or they're off. That's it.
So any company should have some really clear guidelines of what they consider to be misconduct. There's certain non-negotiables that just make sense because that's how a business needs to operate. And you need to have them clear, confirmed in writing. They should absolutely tie in with those values and that mission statement. But for example, if your mission statement as a company is to deliver outstanding customer service, well, that's a great thing to have as part of your mission, as part of one of your values, or however you phrase that. In which case, there's certain non-negotiable things that need to happen to make that work, like making sure that we're sticking to our commitments to be available at certain times for our customers, or turning up on time for appointments, or whatever it may be.
And don't get me wrong, flexibility within that is okay. So if someone says, do you know what, this has happened, I need to, have some flexibility, it comes back to putting people first. But if someone's, taking the piss time and time and time again for things that are not important, then that's just not on. That's so little respect and actually just so rude. That
person shouldn't be in that situation. But I mean, a great example of this is, again, harking back to my retail times. I used to do shift swaps. So staff that wanted their shift off, but they didn't have holiday allowance, or if it wasn't available in the holiday diary or whatever, they could arrange to shift swap with another member of staff. So long as I had the right member of staff that can do the right job in the right place at the right time, why should it matter? And there were some managers that were really against that idea and really resistant to it. I could never get my head around that because, it's important to have that.
This leads on really well, actually, to the next point, which is communication. Now, this would have been absolutely fine if the situation is communicated with people. If someone needs to finish an hour early for work for a particular reason, that's fine. Communicate it, and then the business can remanage it. No one can just leave whenever they want. We've had staff that used to come in, we hired them, they'd come in late for work every single day, which means they wouldn't perform as well as everybody else because they haven't got the time to do it because they were late. Then they wouldn't interact with the team. They kept themselves to themselves. So then that affected the culture. They would leave like on the dot, 5 o'clock, adios. So then if they didn't finish something because they were late, it still wouldn't get finished because they're not willing to stay extra time. We manage the personnel, off they go, and we replace them. I would just say to that person, you do have a fantastic advisor, and he will definitely direct you in the right way to do it. I would just say to listen to him. It's great. So
that person specifically, if you want to chat, there's a couple of things I'd be willing to suggest to you. that you may like.
Absolutely. So let's go on to the last point then for the day, which is how to communicate effectively. Now, communication is absolutely key. And I think lots of people are struggling at the minute because we can't walk out of our office and into the next office and have a conversation with the colleague that we normally would. Some people don't like necessarily to communicate over email. But there are lots of different tools we can use, especially during lockdown or working remotely, that can really enhance our ability to communicate with our teams. So, Duncan, let's go to you first on this one.
Most important part of communication comes down to two things, really. One, listen. Listen properly. Actually listen. Because if your idea of communication is how you can best get your message across, then you're missing out a huge opportunity and potential to get your message across better by listening and paying attention to how that person needs to communicate. And the other thing is set clear expectations. Now, this is important in so many different things, but particularly with communication, clear expectations. So, for example, if you're the kind of person who can't deal with constant ad hoc communications via Facebook Messenger, then make that really clear to your team that that's not how you work and that's not going to work. If, however, you're the kind of person who works really well that way, great, go for it. But yeah, be really clear so people know what your preferred communication style is as well. Yes, it's great if you can adjust it to suit every individual, but that works if you've got a handful of people. It doesn't work if you've got a huge organization. So decide on what your boundaries and barriers are, because that's so important. If I want to communicate really well with someone, I need to know that I've got the time and the headspace at that moment to have that conversation properly. Otherwise, I won't be listening. So if I'm not the kind of person who can drop everything because a Facebook message has come in or whatever it might be, then I need to make it clear that that's not going to work for me, because that way I can spend the time that's really required to communicate properly with that person. And then listen again. So listen before, do your thing, and listen again to make sure that you're getting feedback and that you've been understood. Because it's really easy to put something out there and assume that everyone else is going to take it the way that you've meant it. And that doesn't work. It just doesn't. Because you're in your own head. So you know what you expect and what you mean by that. But that doesn't mean other people are going to get that. And that can be just a slight difference in tonality, or it can be certain words. A great example of this on Facebook, you'll see it all the time. Someone says something, someone takes it one way and replies, and you're there looking at it going, well, he didn't mean that, and actually he didn't mean that. And then you see this argument can go on forever, and you're like, but you actually both agree. You're just wording it differently, and it's daft. One word and the way that it resonates with one person will be completely different, potentially, to the way that it resonates with someone else. So make sure you get that feedback from what they've interpreted from what you're putting across. James,
everybody does communicate in a different way.
I use different words.
Yeah, you love words. The communication is different in different ways, and we can do it in what works for people. Now, we've gone through this at Sigma, where we've gone and tried to please everybody, which is, okay, what's your preferred communication method for the team? Some people like using different bits of software. Some people like WhatsApp, some people like Facebook, some people like Facebook Workplace, some people like the CRM system. And you get so many. Some people like email, some people like text, some people like phone. Now, trying to communicate in all different ways isn't realistic for a business. So pick one that maybe is the majority or the one that you prefer. But I think one of the keys is to communicate that effectively. You need to show people how to use it. Now, don't just expect people to be able to communicate without knowing how to use the platform. I think this is one of the real things that I think we did speak about in another show a couple of weeks ago, which is if you want everybody, we personally use Facebook Workplace to communicate with all the team and do everything inside. Not everybody likes that one, which is fair enough. But for my team to use that, I had to train them all up in how to use it effectively, because otherwise they're like, I don't like it. And if you don't like it and you don't feel comfortable using it, you're not going to use it. So I would just say, remember, if anybody's going through that kind of process at the minute, then make sure your team are clued up on how to use the software, because they will, once they know how to use it, they'll be much more willing to actually start communicating with each other. Sarah, we're going to come back to you now. I know this is something that's massive for you because you've got an enormous team, communicate with them heavily on Facebook more, I suppose, more than anything, if I'm right. But tell us a bit about your experience and your advice to people that are looking at how to communicate effectively with their teams.
Yeah, before I do that, picking on what you just said as well about showing people how to use something is so important. Don't make assumptions that just because you know something, they're going to. I had a conversation as an example this morning about using Remo. So I know you guys know what that is and you've used that platform, but for many, many people, that's completely new. So we decided we're going to run an event using this platform. And then one of the first things I said was, actually, now I need to put a video together or a guide, which will tell people how that works, how they change tables, how they move around on it, what they can do and what that looks like. Because if you don't, it's going to panic people. They're going to click on it, then they're going to run away from it. They're not going to understand it. It's not going to feel easy to them. And it's taken the time to just have that little bit of consideration for people. Actually, do I need to go a little bit extra? Can I get that extra step? But in terms of communication, I mean, communication is key. We all know that. And as Duncan pointed out, listening, it's a two-way thing. I think one of the important things is be available. Let people know how they can communicate with you. When's a good time to communicate with you? And actually, if you're in back-to-back meetings and you're not around to make decisions or anything like that, have someone else in place who can make those decisions for you. Whether that's a PA, a VA, whatever. If you know, if someone needs to change their shift or something like that and you can't be around, you need to have someone who can make those decisions if you can't be available yourself. So be available, let people know that you have an open door policy, that they can come and ask you anything and support them. In terms of getting messages across to people, as you said, Stefan, I use a Facebook group. For me, my demographic, the people I work with, that's a very comfortable platform for us. It's shifting slightly, actually. We're going a lot more on Instagram recently, but that hasn't really got the culture bond in terms of communicating with teams like Facebook has at the moment. However, I would never, ever rely on just one platform. So in any important information that I have to send out will go out in Facebook groups, in messengers. I have a mailing list, which every information will go out in that as well. We have daily Zooms, which are open to everyone, which are just to relax, coffee and chat about how things are moving forward. But we have one a day for 1 hour that anyone can jump in and be part of and ask questions, no matter where you are in the team, what your role is or what you do. And I think that's really important. As you say, people like to have their information in different ways. So if I have got, a training on something, I will make sure there's a written document for those people who want to read it at their own time, with images in as well, for those people who are a bit more visual. But I also often have a video of it as well, so people can listen to it while they're driving and hear the information, or watch the information as well, or see it step by step. So it's taking the time to make sure you're using different platforms or different ways, and understanding that just because you like your information in this way doesn't mean everyone else will want their information in the same way at all.
And I think springing on from that, making sure that the communication delivery style suits the purpose. So an example of this would be a particular leader who is very, very good at motivating people and kind of doing that whole leadership thing, but when all I want to know is, how is this going to work, what are the facts and what are the figures, I don't need to sit through you trying to do that whole motivational thing, when you could just do, instead of a 20-minute video that's all empowering and woohoo, yay, but actually, do I really need to watch all of that just to get this is the facts, this is what's happening, and this is what you need to go and do? Boom. So, make sure that the communication staff is fit for purpose. So if you're not going to do that, because that's what a lot of people need, and they need that oomph and motivation to go with that message, great, do that, but then make sure it's broken down into what the key points are and communicate them to me. So Sarah spoke about how she uses Facebook a lot to get stuff out there. Great. That's not going to be great for everyone. And so when there is key important information, that shouldn't just be buried within, like the coffee and chats over Zoom are brilliant, but they're not the best way to then make sure that the really important key information gets out to everyone. Because not everyone's going to be interested in that coffee and a chat if they're busy.
No, it's about following up. So if you're going to do that that motivational live or whatever it is to get people inspired, but there's a few key points in there, then you need to follow that up with these are the key points taken away. This is the email going out with actually this is what I've just relayed, this is what you need to know. Because you're right, some people will need that motivation and they really need that pick me up at times. Other people, you will just want, I need the facts on this, I'm too busy, tell me the information I need to know right now, and then I can move on and do with that what I can. Yeah, absolutely agreed with Duncan.
This is why it's important to communicate in like different ways with your team, I think. Sarah, you said about doing the groups, where I know that you don't just do groups, you do one-to-one as well, which I think is key. So give people the opportunity to talk in a forum. I think the coffee morning once a day for an hour is absolutely fantastic idea. And then also to make sure you are scheduling in time to speak with those people individually on a one-to-one basis as well, in maybe their preferred communication method. Some people like video, some people like a call. I would recommend doing video at this time. It's nice to see each other's faces, but obviously it doesn't work.
Some faces more than others, right?
Some people more than others, yeah. We had to put Duncan's face on it for some reason. Yeah, lovely, it's fine. Guys, that is all we've got time for today. We do have one question. If it's all right, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to answer the question, but I'm probably going to pass it to Duncan to follow up with the individual after, if that's all right with Duncan. It's a more of a related question. I personally wouldn't be able to answer it. It's not my area of expertise at all. I'm not sure about Sarah, but I know Duncan, this is definitely your area. So if it's all right,
there's two answers to it. One needs to involve an HR expert.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Tips and guidance on that, but speak to an expert. But the other side of it, absolutely, yeah. Stefan, it's just showing Facebook user for me. So afterwards, let me do that.
We'll hook you up.
You'll see the comments from the thing.
Cool. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. And for everybody who's watched the show today, thank you so much for joining us. Just remember, the only thing we ask to keep the show going is to pay it forward. So if you know anybody that can benefit from what we spoke about today, which is pretty much everyone, I'm sure, then please do tag them in the comments or share the show with them so they can watch it on the replay. That would be absolutely amazing. Guys, fantastic guests once again. Thank you very much for coming back. It's been a pleasure. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and to everybody else, have a fantastic week. But before I forget, we'll come to Duncan and Sarah just to give a quick reminder of who you are, what you do, and how people can get in touch with you moving forward. So Duncan, over to you first.
Cool. So actually, I'm launching a new a service thing. So I'm going to talk about that. Looking after your mental health and emotional well-being is really, really important now more than ever. And people look at mental health from a very reactive perspective. I think it's important to be proactive about it and look after yourself in advance. So I'm now launching a new subscription service where you can join me for a live relaxation event streamed online every week, Wednesdays from 8 p.m, and then get full access to the full back catalogue. So basically, if you want to relax properly and look after yourself with an expert hypnotherapist every week for like £5 a week, less than that it works out as, then hit me up from mindaffinity.co.uk/relax.
Awesome. Thank you, Duncan. And Sarah, a quick reminder of who you are, what you do, and how people can get in touch with you.
So best way to get in touch with me is actually through Facebook. Send me a message direct. I will pick them up even if they go into my others box. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. Apologies for the noise. At the moment, really what I'm really helping with is getting books that sent out free of postage. So we do books all the way from birth right up to young adult, really helping supporting home learning at the moment and entertainment value as well, trying to get children off screens and actually doing something. So happy to help with that. The other thing I'm doing lots of at the moment is helping people to start up their own book businesses. There's so many people who have been furloughed who are looking for extra income right now. So if you're looking to do that, to say we've got a huge team, we're always growing rapidly and welcoming more and more people into that culture and into that team. So if you're looking at doing something like that, then also drop me a message and I'd love to get in contact with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And for those who don't know me, my name's Stefan. I am the Digital Commando. And if you want to know more about the Digital Commando Academy that launches on the 15th of June, then go to digitalcommando.io for more information on that. Pretty much it. If you want to get, I was going to say more. I won't. That's it. That's the end of the show. We haven't got any time for you to talk anymore. I'm sure you've all heard me talk enough. Guys, thank you very much for joining. For everybody tuned in, you've been excellent. And we'll see you all tomorrow for Fitness Friday at 11 a.m. with another fantastic guest. See you all tomorrow. Peace out.